When we track animal migration, we usually look at a flat line on a map, a flock of birds flying south, or a herd of caribou trekking horizontally across a static landscape from one point to another. The Amazon rainforest operates under a different set of physical laws. Within this basin, the geography itself is unstable. Every year, the terrain undergoes a massive seasonal shift. Bone-dry basins are swallowed by surging currents, transforming the forest floor in days. Because the ground is impermanent, the animals here face a constant pressure. Standing still results in death. To survive this instability, creatures do not just travel across the land, they navigate a three-dimensional matrix. They move horizontally against rushing currents, climb vertically into the forest canopy, and dig straight down into the subterranean mud. Migration in the Amazon is a continuous 360-degree response to the rising and falling of water. On the horizontal plane, the Dorado fish begins its journey at the gateway to the Atlantic. It navigates upstream toward the foothills of the Andes to breed, completing the longest freshwater migration on Earth. This chart scales their route against the entire river system. The Dorado swim 4,000 kilometers directly into a punishing current, without eating or drinking, utilizing all their accumulated energy just to push through the water. Along the riverbanks, horizontal movement relies on sheer volume. Downstream, Amazonian river turtles gather for a coordinated landing strategy known as the arribada. Tens of thousands of female turtles haul themselves onto ancestral sandbanks at once. By converging in these numbers, they ensure that even with predators waiting, the majority of the population survives through simple probability. Survival on this horizontal x-axis is an exercise in endurance and scale. It requires either the physical stamina to fight thousands of kilometers of current or the numbers to bypass the predators lining the route. This chart scales river rise against the canopy. During the rainy season, water spikes 10 meters, submerging country-sized forests. Millions of pacu fish migrate upward into these flooded trees, reaching high-branch fruits and dispersing seeds through the upper canopy. For land-dwelling insects that cannot swim, the rising water is a crisis. Fire ants respond by clamping onto one another, creating a buoyant, living raft that drifts on the surface until it reaches higher ground. Higher in the canopy, monkeys and sloths must forge new aerial highways. As the lower branches disappear, they are forced into constant movement to avoid being isolated on islands of vegetation that can no longer support them. This vertical shift forces even the Amazon jaguar to adapt. Usually a land predator, it becomes a semi-aquatic hunter, patrolling the trees and water to find prey with no land left to escape to. When floodwaters erase the horizontal plane, moving up the y-axis becomes the only route to safety. The environmental state shifts as the dry season reaches its peak in October. Stagnant pools vanish, and the lack of moisture leaves the forest floor vulnerable to fire. With the rivers gone and the canopy heat intensifying, the visible landscape becomes a trap for aquatic species. The lungfish responds by migrating down the z-axis. It buries itself deep into the mud, secreting a protective cocoon to hibernate beneath the surface. This descent into the mud pauses the fish's biological clock. It remains in a state of suspended animation, protected from the heat until the surface environment can once again sustain it. The drought eventually breaks when moisture returns from the Atlantic. But this water arrives via the most massive migration in the ecosystem, one that happens entirely in the sky. This model tracks flying rivers. Billions of tons of water vapor evaporate from the forest canopy, forming airborne currents that transport rain across the entire continent. The constant movement of water between the earth, the canopy, and the sky forces high-stakes behavioral adaptations. In an environment where the physical terrain is never a guarantee, social and defensive strategies must be equally flexible. Because the shifting water levels force predators and prey into cramped, overlapping territories, solitary defense is often impossible. Giant river otters survive by mobbing, utilizing a disciplined pack structure to disorient larger threats from multiple directions. Similarly, the black caiman prioritizes aggressive nest guarding over hunting during the flood season. In a habitat where submerged tree roots make maneuvering difficult, Protecting a fixed point becomes the only way to ensure the next generation survives the transition between land and water. The Amazon is a living hydrological engine. Every creature within it is part of a perpetual cycle of movement, where the physical landscape is always changing, and survival depends on navigating every dimension of the forest.